Look, I need to tell you about what happened when we tried to buy our dream house. Because 3 weeks ago, I thought we were about to close on the perfect property. Now I'm sitting here staring at a garden bed where a koi pond used to be, wondering how everything went so completely insane. I'm Rachel. I'm a real estate agent. 15 years of experience, hundreds of deals closed. And somehow I'm being painted as the unreasonable one in all this. Over some fish. When I say I'm a real estate agent, I don't mean I just got my license last year. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've closed hundreds of deals. Bidding wars, inspection nightmares, title disasters. I've seen it all. My husband, Mark, also an agent. Been in the business for 20 years. We're the couple other agents come to for advice. People pay us thousands of dollars to navigate the home buying process. So when we found our dream house 6 months ago, we knew exactly what we were doing. The property was perfect. 4-bedroom, 3-bath, updated kitchen, amazing neighborhood. Everything on our wish list. But the real selling point? The backyard had this gorgeous koi pond with a natural stone waterfall feature. It was like something out of a magazine. The current owners had spent probably $30,000 on this thing. Professional-grade filtration system, underwater lighting, the whole setup. I was already picturing it, showing it off to friends at summer barbecues, posting pictures online with captions like, "Just relaxing by our koi pond." Look, it was the most natural thing in the world. My sister doesn't have a koi pond. My colleagues don't have koi ponds. But we were going to have one. Mark joked when we first saw it. Fancy fish for fancy people. And honestly, I loved that. We were going to be the people with the fancy fish. We wrote a strong offer. Actually, I should say we wrote the perfect offer, because that's literally what we do for a living. The sellers accepted within 24 hours. The inspection came back clean. Appraisal came in right at value. Everything was smooth. Textbook deal. Then about 3 weeks before closing, the sellers mentioned something casually through their agent. "Oh, by the way, we're leaving the koi in the pond temporarily. We'll come back to get them when the weather warms up in spring." See, it was February. The fish were hibernating at the bottom of the pond. And apparently you can't move them when they're dormant or you risk killing them. The sellers were having a new pond dug at their new property, but it wouldn't be ready until April or May, so they needed to leave the fish for a few months. Mark and I talked it over for maybe 10 minutes. No big deal, right? We'll just add some protective language to the purchase agreement. I've done this 100 times with other property items. Sellers leaving furniture temporarily, picking up stored items from garages, whatever. Standard stuff. So I drafted an addendum. Simple, clean language. Sellers will retrieve koi fish at their convenience when weather permits. Buyers assume no responsibility for the fish during the interim period. Sellers acknowledge fish are being left at seller's sole risk. Our attorney reviewed it. He said it looked fine. The sellers signed it. We signed it. Done. Protected. Or so I thought. Closing was scheduled for March 15th. We'd given notice at our apartment, scheduled movers, started packing. I was telling everyone about our new house. My colleague Sarah asked me over coffee, "Did you get a specific removal date in writing for the fish?" I waved her off. "We added protection language. We're not responsible for them. We're covered." She kind of shrugged. "Yeah, but what if they don't pick them up?" "They will. They're championship koi or something. The sellers are obsessed with them. They'll be back for them." I remember telling Mark that night, "I can't believe we found this place, and everything went so smoothly. No drama, no complications. Just the way a transaction should go when you know what you're doing." The stage was set for everything to blow up, and I had no idea how bad it was about to get. It was March 13th, 2 days before closing, 48 hours before we were supposed to get the keys to our dream house. I was at the office finishing up paperwork for another client when an email came through. Subject line, "Addendum for buyer review and signature." I opened it expecting something routine, maybe a clarification on the appliances or a minor title issue. I started reading, and my blood ran cold. It was from the sellers, a new addendum about the koi fish.
And it wasn't just protection language.
It was a failure agreement. Let me read you what it said because you need to hear this to believe it. Buyers agree to assume full financial responsibility for the health and welfare of 8 koi fish remaining on property. In the event any fish are found to be ill, injured, dead, or missing upon seller's retrieval, buyers will be licensed for replacement cost of fish at current market value. Minimum liability, $1,000 per fish. No cap on maximum damages. Buyers must maintain pond filtration system in operating condition at all times. Buyers must ensure electrical pump remains operational. Buyers will be held responsible for any damage from power outages, equipment failure, or weather events. Buyers must prevent any animals, including but not limited to raccoons, herons, or domestic pets, from accessing pond. Buyers must not add any chemicals, treatments, or additives to pond water without written authorization from sellers. I read it 3 times. 3 times trying to make sense of what I was seeing. $1,000 minimum per fish. No cap on damages. They had 8 fish. That's at least $8,000 in potential liability. But it said no cap. What if one of these fish was worth $10,000, $20,000? We'd seen koi sell for crazy money online, but we never thought... I walked into Mark's office. He was on a call with a client. I stood there holding my laptop until he looked up and saw my face. He wrapped up the call. "What's wrong?" he asked. I turned the laptop around. "Read this." I watched his eyes move down the screen, watched his expression change from curious to confused to absolutely shocked. "This is a joke, right?" he said. "They're not serious." "They want us to sign this," I said, "in 2 days before closing." Mark read it again. "Rachel, we're agents. We can't sign this. This is insane. Unlimited liability for fish? For weather events? How are we supposed to control if it storms or if a raccoon gets in there? I don't know. That's what I'm saying." This is the most insane addendum I've ever seen in my entire career. "We need to call David," Mark said. "David is our real estate attorney." It was 8:30 at night, but I called anyway. David answered on the 4th ring and I could hear his kids in the background. I explained the situation. I could hear him sighing. "Email it to me," he said. I sent it, waited on the line while he read it. "This is unusual," he said finally. "That's lawyer speak for completely insane. Just decline to sign it. You have language in the purchase agreement that says you're not responsible. This new addendum is an unreasonable modification." "But what if they won't close without it?" I asked. My stomach was twisting. "Then they're in breach of contract," David said calmly. "The PA doesn't require this. They can't add material terms 2 days before closing." "But they could refuse to close," I said quietly. "They could," David admitted. "But you'd have legal recourse. They'd be the ones in breach." Legal recourse. That means lawyers and delays and money. We'd already paid for the inspection, the appraisal, the attorney fees so far. We'd given notice at our apartment. The movers were scheduled. My parents were flying in to help us move. "So what do we do?" Mark asked. "Send a polite email declining to sign," David said. "Reference the existing language in the PA. Be professional. They'll back down." We drafted the email together. Very professional. "We appreciate the seller's concern for their koi. However, we feel the existing language in the purchase agreement adequately addresses the fish situation. We respectfully decline to sign the proposed addendum. We look forward to closing as scheduled on March 15th. I read it 5 times before hitting send. They'll back down, I told Mark. This is just a negotiation tactic. They're trying to scare us. Mark nodded, but he didn't look convinced. I had no idea this was about to turn into the most insane standoff of my entire career. The next morning, March 14th, one day before closing, I was making coffee when my phone rang. The seller's agent. His name was Tom, this older guy who'd been in real estate forever. Usually super laid back. "Rachel," he said, and his voice was tight. "We have a problem." "Good morning to you too, Tom." "My clients are very concerned about their koi," he said. "These are championship fish. Some of them are worth $5,000 each. They're not comfortable leaving them without protection." "Tom, we have language in the PA. We're not signing an addendum with unlimited liability. That's not reasonable." "My clients don't feel the PA language is specific enough, Tom. I've been doing this for 15 years. That addendum your clients want us to sign? I would never advise a client to sign something like that. Never. It's completely one-sided. They're just trying to protect their property. The fish aren't their property after closing. Look, we're sympathetic. We understand they love their fish. But we're not signing an agreement that makes us financially responsible for acts of nature." There was a long pause. "What if we modified it?" Tom said. "Maybe just 500 per fish instead of 1,000. And we could add a cap." "Tom, no. No amount. The PA says we're not responsible. That's the agreement." Another pause. "I'll talk to my clients," he said, and hung up. I immediately called 3 colleagues, other experienced agents, read them the addendum. Sarah said, "That's absolutely insane. Don't sign it." My friend Dave, who's been an agent for 25 years, said, "I've never seen anything like that. They're trying to bully you." Even my mentor Linda, who usually tells me to compromise and keep deals together, said, "Rachel, you can't sign that. The liability is too broad." I felt validated. I was right. These were professionals telling me I was right. I called my sister that afternoon. She's not in real estate. She's a teacher. "They want you to pay for fish?" she said. "Can't they just take the fish? They're hibernating. Can't be moved until spring. So what are you going to do?" "They're going to back down. They have to. We have a contract." But that night, lying in bed, I wasn't so sure. "What if they don't close?" I whispered to Mark. "Then we'll deal with it," he said, but I could hear the worry in his voice. March 14th, 2 p.m. Less than 24 hours before we were supposed to close. Another email. My laptop dinged and I saw the subject line, "Koi Care Instructions." It was a PDF, 14 pages long. 14 pages! Detailed feeding schedules, water testing protocols with acceptable pH ranges, temperature monitoring requirements, emergency contact numbers for their koi specialist, instructions for what to do if the fish surface, instructions for what not to do under any circumstances. I called Mark over. "Look at this. They think we're going to follow 14 pages of fish care instructions for fish we don't even want." "This is out of control," Mark said. I called David again. "They're escalating. What do we do?" "Do you still want this house?" he asked. "Yes." "Then we need to protect you. Let me draft something." An hour later, David sent us what he called a fish occupancy agreement. It was brilliant. Essentially, it said that by leaving the fish on the property after closing, the sellers were agreeing to our terms. They'd hold us harmless. They'd accept any and all risk. They'd retrieve the fish by June 1st or forfeit them. And here's the beautiful part. The sellers didn't have to sign it. It said that by proceeding with closing while leaving fish on property, they were accepting these terms by default. This protects you completely, David said. Send it over. Make it clear this is the only fish agreement you'll accept. I looked at Mark. This is what we should have required from day one, but we're fixing it now. We sent it over at 5 p.m. with a very clear message. Sign the closing documents tomorrow as planned, or we walk. 20 minutes later, Tom called back. Rachel, my clients feel threatened by your aggressive posture. Aggressive? Tom, they wanted unlimited license. For fish. For weather. That's aggressive. They're just trying to protect their property. The fish aren't their property after closing. They're championship koi. Some of them have won awards. Then they should have planned to take them with them, or paid for professional storage, or not sold a house with a pond if they couldn't leave their fish. My clients are not comfortable with your agreement, and we're not comfortable with theirs. So here we are. Tom, we close tomorrow or this deal is dead. Those are the options. I hung up. My hands were shaking. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept running the numbers in my head. We'd paid $600 for the inspection, $500 for the appraisal, $2,000 to the attorney so far. We'd given 60 days notice on our apartment. We had to be out in 2 weeks. The movers were scheduled. We'd bought new furniture that was being delivered to the new address. If this fell apart over fish, maybe we should just sign something reasonable, Mark said in the dark. No, we're right. They're being insane. We're agents. We know how to negotiate. We can't let them bully us. But what if we're not signing unlimited liability? We're not. But part of me wondered if I was taking this too far. Part of me wondered if I should just agree to some protection for them, just to keep the deal alive. But another part of me, the professional part, the agent part, knew I was right. I was protecting us from unreasonable liability. Right? March 15th, closing day. We were supposed to be at the title company at 2 p.m. At 9 a.m., my phone rang. Tom. I answered it, ready for another fight. Rachel, he said. And his voice was different. Tired. My clients have decided to remove the fish before closing. I blinked. What? They've arranged for professional storage. The fish will be removed by noon today. They'll be gone before you take possession. They're paying for storage? I finally said. Yes, they found a koi specialist who has climate-controlled tanks. It's costing them $200 a month, but they'll do it. They could have done this the entire time? They didn't want to pay for it initially. Tom! Do you know how much we've spent on attorney fees over this? How many hours of sleep I've lost? We almost walked away from our dream house, and they could have just paid for fish storage from the beginning? I understand you're frustrated. Frustrated? Frustrated? This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever dealt with in 15 years. And I've seen some crazy stuff. They held our closing hostage for weeks rather than pay for fish boarding. I apologize for the inconvenience, Tom said stiffly. I hung up without saying goodbye. The fish were removed by 11 a.m. At 2 p.m., we met at the title company. The sellers weren't there. They'd signed everything in advance. We sat across from the closing agent and signed document after document. It should have felt victorious. It didn't. I kept thinking, they could have avoided all of this. They could have just paid for storage from the start, or required it to be ready before they moved, or taken the fish with them temporarily. Mark squeezed my hand as we signed the final document. It's over, he said. The closing agent handed us the keys, smiled, and said, "Congratulations on your new home." "Thanks." We walked out to our car. I looked at Mark. "That was the craziest transaction I've ever been part of," I said. "At least the fish are gone," Mark said. "At least we don't have to deal with them." I had no idea the koi pond story wasn't over yet. We moved into the house that weekend. Everything was perfect. The kitchen was gorgeous. The bedrooms were spacious. The neighborhood was quiet and beautiful. But every time I walked into the backyard, I saw it. The koi pond. Empty now, just sitting there. The pump was still running. It was on our electricity now, humming away 24/7, filtering nothing but empty water. I'd stand there looking at it, and all I could think about was those weeks of stress. The phone calls, the arguments, the attorney fees. That pond. That stupid, charming water feature that almost cost us everything. Mark would find me staring at it sometimes. "You okay?" he'd ask. "I hate that thing," I'd say. Spring came, March turned to April, April turned to May. The weather warmed up. Perfect koi moving temperature, according to the 14 pages of instructions we'd never agreed to follow. I waited for Tom to call about the sellers retrieving their pond equipment. They'd left the whole filtration system, the pump, all of it. Surely they'd want it for their new pond, right? May turned to June. Nothing. I finally texted Tom. "When are the sellers retrieving their pond equipment?" He responded, "Pond? Yes, the filtration system, the pump."
All the equipment they left.
"Oh, they decided not to build a new pond. Too expensive." I stared at that text for a full minute. They'd decided not to build a pond. They'd held up our closing, demanded unlimited liability, sent 14 pages of care instructions, paid for 3 months of professional fish storage, and then decided not to build a pond at all. "So what do they want to do with the equipment?" I texted back. "They said you can keep it or dispose of it." "They're not even building a pond. This was all for nothing." June came. 3 months of ownership. I was going through our utility bills when I noticed something. The electric bill was higher than I expected. Not crazy high, but noticeable. I started tracking it, and I realized the pond pump, running 24/7 since we'd moved in. I did the math. About $50 a month. We'd paid $150 so far for a pump that was filtering an empty pond we didn't even want. I called David, our attorney. "Can we sue them for the electricity cost?" I asked. "For $150? It's the principal." "Rachel," he said gently, "legal fees would cost you more than that. Significantly more. So we just eat the cost? You could turn off the pump." "But the addendum they wanted said—" "You didn't sign it," David reminded me. "You're not obligated to maintain anything. Turn it off if you want." Permission to act felt good. That afternoon, I went outside and unplugged the pump. The humming stopped. Silence. It felt like a small victory. But the pond was still there, empty, useless, taking up a huge portion of our backyard. In July, Mark and I were having coffee on the patio. I was staring at the pond again. "We should fill it in," I said. Mark looked at me. "That's expensive." "I don't care. I want it gone." "How much?" he asked. I'd already researched it. "About $3,000. Drain it, fill it with dirt and gravel, grade it, sod over it." Mark whistled. "That's a lot of money to get rid of a pond." "I don't care," I said again. "Every time I look at it, I think about those people and their fish and how insane they made everything."
I don't want to look at it anymore.
The charming water feature I'd bragged about to my friends. The fancy koi pond I'd been so excited to post about on social media was about to cost us $3,000 to destroy. "Are you sure?" Mark asked. "Completely sure." The contractors came in August. It took them 2 days. First, they drained all the water. Then they removed the filtration system, the pump, all the equipment. Then they started dumping in load after load of dirt and gravel. I watched from the kitchen window. Every shovelful of dirt felt like revenge, like I was burying that entire nightmare. And I loved it. When they finished, they graded it smooth and laid fresh sod. Within 2 weeks, you couldn't even tell there had been a pond there. Just a nice level section of lawn. Mark came out to look at it with me. "You know," he said carefully, "if we just required them to remove the fish before closing in the first place, don't." He was right. I knew he was right, but I didn't want to hear it. Now that spot where the pond used to be, we have a garden. Tomatoes, herbs, some flowers. It's actually really nice. Friends came over a few weeks ago. Someone asked, "Didn't this house have a koi pond? I swear I saw it in the listing photos." "Not anymore," I said. They wanted to hear the story, so I told them. The fish, the addendum, the standoff, all of it. My friend Jessica, she's also an agent, looked at me confused when I finished. "Wait," she said. "You didn't require them to remove the fish before closing? We had protective language in the PA." "But Rachel," she said slowly, "you always tell your clients to get removal dates in writing for anything the sellers are leaving temporarily. You've said that to me like 10 times. The sellers were the problem. They were completely unreasonable. But you could have avoided the whole thing if you just required removal before closing," she pressed. I changed the subject. My attorney told me later, after everything was done, that I'd escalated unnecessarily with the fish occupancy agreement. He said my aggressive response made the situation worse, made the sellers dig in harder. I still don't really get what he means. I'm a 15-year agent. I know how to protect my interests. They came at us with an unreasonable addendum. We responded appropriately. Sure, maybe I should have required them to remove the fish before we took possession. In retrospect, that would have been smarter. But they should have planned better. Normal people don't hold up real estate transactions over pets. Normal people pay for storage if they need it. Normal people don't send 14-page care instructions for fish they're leaving at someone else's house. We spent over $2,500 in attorney fees just dealing with the fish situation. Another $3,000 filling in the pond. Months of stress. All because of what? Some fish. I still don't really understand how they thought any of that was reasonable. But I guess some people are just like that about their koi. We get compliments on our garden now. People say it's charming. Much more charming than a koi pond ever was. You know what? They're right. Would we ever get into the koi hobby? No way in hell.